The fans are out to get a ticket or two from Washington to Kalamazoo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's edition of Inside Pitch with me, Joe Mansolino, and my co-host / producer, Mr. Brian Lehman. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
No problem. No problem. Busy week coming up in baseball.
I don't know why.
There's these things called the playoffs.
Oh, you mean the whole reason they played this long season was to get to playoffs?
No, actually no. To get one step past the playoffs. To get into that thing called the World Series, I think it is.
I thought it was the League Championship Series is what they're after.
No.
They want the World Series?
They are ready for the World Series. And we are ready to help them get there.
Well, we know one team that gets to take a little mini holiday at the beginning, or two teams that get to take a little mini holiday before the playoffs really get going good.
There's a couple teams that get to have a little bit of rest. The Twins and Yankees get to rest a little bit. I'm sorry, Houston gets to rest a little bit. The Dodgers get to rest a little bit. Those are the two. And then, the playoffs are set up where Tampa Bay and Oakland are fighting to be able to play Houston for the American League. And the Brewers and the Nationals are fighting to play the Dodgers.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you think it's advantageous to have that little bit of time off or to keep playing just so you don't get any rust on you?
There's different thinking on that. I've heard both sides be argued with it, and I think it really depends on the status of your team at that time. If everybody's healthy and you're going into this time of year playing well, I think it hurts you to not continue playing, to have time off. But if you had it sewn up or you just won or whatever, and some of your guys need a day or two to rest, they're hurt, you need them in full strength and those kind of things, then it's a blessing to have, the day or two or three off. So it really depends on how you were at the end of the season as a team. Mm-hmm. And, I think the Dodgers are healthy and ready to go. Houston's looking good. This is going to be a great playoff season. I mean, I don't think you can count anybody out. I think right now going into the playoffs, the Dodgers and Houston, the two teams that are going to be playing the wild card people, are probably the strongest teams right now. They're both playing great baseball. As we've talked about before with Houston, they are one of the only teams, if not the only team, that play old school baseball where they hit and run and hit to the opposite field and leave pitchers in the game. I mean, they're just playing really good baseball.
So maybe that'll stop some of the other madness where people want to have a computer making all the decisions for them and say, maybe if you go out and play small ball for a while, it works out.
I hope so. And we'll ask our guest tonight, Joe Moller, a little bit about that. Really excited to have him on. Can you imagine him at 19 years old, which is the youngest starting pitcher ever in Dodger history, at 19 years, 2 months, and you come up and you're a starting pitcher next to, guys like Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, a little later Don Sutton. I mean, how amazing is that at that age you were able to compete and be part of a rotation like that? Joe Moller was just an outstanding pitcher, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him.
Well, see, the one funny thing about a guy like him is he was a really good quality pitcher in his own right, but he was overshadowed because you have legends playing on the field with you.
And you hit that right on the nose. Legends is a great word. I mean, just a great word.
Yeah, think about it. I mean, it would be intimidating as all heck for anybody to say, well, Sandy Koufax is out there. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, no. Do I turn around now?
Yeah,
Wait, Coach, I think I pulled a muscle.
That's right. He's 19 years old and out there just having to deal with it.
Yeah.
Tough guy.
Yeah. And as we'll see, very humble. Some of those other pitchers are in the Hall of Fame in baseball, and Joe Moller is in the Hall of Fame as a human being. Just a great, great guy. And, again, I'm looking forward to talking to him.
Excellent.
So the playoffs, this is a time of the year where we tape our show a day ahead of time. So going into those of you watching, going into our show, you know who won between Tampa Bay and Oakland to play Houston, and you know who won between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Washington Nationals to play the Dodgers. So we can't really talk about that because we're taping the show ahead of time and we don't know who won that.
But if you wouldn't mind, if you could send it back in time to us now, because now that sports gambling is pretty much legal in a lot of states, we'd really think that was awesome.
But we still, I think, and I don't know if you do, I mean, I think going into this, the Houston and the Dodgers are both the teams to beat.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, you really can't count out the Braves. You can't count out the Cards, the Twins, or the Yankees. I mean, these are tough teams.
I agree. Now, the sad thing is, don't throw anything across the table at me, but I picked the Yankees to take it all.
Do you? There's quite a few people that pick the Yankees to take it all. I mean, there's no question that they will probably score more runs than anybody. Mm-hmm. You know, I think they average 712 runs a game, but but 3,000 strikeouts too. If they don't hit a home run, they strike out.
Good point.
And it's just, New York's happy with it, but that's not baseball to me. You hit a home run or, you strike out. I just,
Well, see, I'm only projecting 36 runs scored in the entire World Series, whereas last year
in the game or
all the
all total.
Where last year it was 44. So I'm projecting it because I'm picking them. I projected for the number of runs to drop. However, I'm projecting the number of home runs overall through the entire playoff series to go up slightly.
Well, I think it'll go up with the Yankees. If while they're playing the Twins and if they beat the Twins, they'll have a lot to do with that statistic, I think, because they will hit a lot of home runs and their pitchers will give up a lot of home runs.
Good point. Hey, we know another staff that's really good about giving up home runs. Somebody's bench that's really bad about that. We won't talk about who Braves, but
I don't think we can count the Braves out. They have a tough team, young team, but they're hungry. They're ready. That Braves Cards is going to be a really, really good series.
And for you folks in St. Louis who are listening to this, because I know there are a few of you guys that work with me, tough.
You can't count them out either. I mean, they got it together, if you will, at the right time of year.
True.
They really started playing well towards the end and took it. They're ready. I think they're one of those teams that have the momentum going in where they're probably glad they don't really have a lot of time off, because they're going right into playing, and they're tough.
Good point.
They're really tough.
See, what's funny is you were talking about injuries or whatnot earlier, and most of us who've never played outside the Sandlot have no clue how bad these guys really get beat up playing as much as they play. And it just baffles me. You think, well, this guy's a pitcher. How did he get hurt? Just throwing that dad-burn ball out there.
Yeah. And there's so many players, and players today have changed. Mm-hmm. Not to say they all have, but there are some people who they don't care how hurt they are. They're going to go out there and play because that's what they get paid to do. And then there's others who, if they think they might have hurt their finger, they need 3 or 4 days off. And, and there's everybody else in between. But injuries do definitely play a part, and especially this time of year when you would like to field your best, 8 players out on the field at a time.
Good point.
So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see.
So who are you projecting all the way?
I think the series is going to come down to the Dodgers and the Yankees. I'm going to go with. I think Houston's really tough, but I think the Dodgers and the Yankees back to when the World Series was the World Series in 60s and 70s when they played each other. In the 50s, they did a lot, and the Dodgers won in 55. I would like to see that. And I think one of the reasons is I think if that happens, I think the Dodgers will beat the Yankees. I don't know if they could beat Houston, or the Cardinals, maybe even the Braves. I mean, I don't know that, but I think they can beat the Yankees. But the Yankees have a shot to make that happen. But it's going to be tough to beat Houston. And for the Yankees, it's going to be tough to beat Minnesota. The Twins were playing well going into it. It's going to be interesting. And as you're listening, you will already know who won between Tampa Bay and Oakland and who won between the Brewers and the Nationals. So bear with us during the playoffs when we tape the shows, and we won't be able to talk about them. But what do you say we get our guest on?
Sure, that sounds like a plan. Hang on 1 second.
We're going to get Joe Moller, great Dodger pitcher in the 60s and from 62 to 71, and get him on in just a minute.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, with us tonight is our guest, Joe Moller. Before we talk to him, let me tell you a little bit about him. He pitched for the Los Angeles Dodgers from 1962 to 1971, and he is, to this day, the youngest starting pitcher in Dodgers history at 19 years and 2 months. Shows you just how awesome of a pitcher he was. He pitched in the 1966 World Series with the Dodgers against the Baltimore Orioles, and later in his life, he was an advanced scout for the Miami Marlins, which he'll talk about during the interview. And in that time, in 2003, they won the World Series championship. And I know that they wouldn't have won that without the help from our guest, Mr. Joe Moller. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks, Joe.
Good.
I don't know if I'd add that we wouldn't have won it without me.
That's all right. I can say that. I know the truth. The youngest pitcher in Dodger history, that's just amazing. And when you think of the 60s, it's the 60s and the 70s that had the most of the people playing at that time who are now in the Hall of Fame. So you were facing big-time players all the time. That's just amazing.
Well, it was a tremendous thrill for me being a huge Dodger fan, when they were in Brooklyn and then following them when they came out here. And then to be just a year out of high school, I mean, it was almost overwhelming to me just to think that I was on that same staff. It just absolutely an incredible thrill.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that staff in a while. There were one or two, maybe even three guys on there that were pretty decent pitchers.
Yeah, as I tell people, I was the fourth starter in 1 year, and it was Koufax, Drysdale, Sutton, and what's his name.
And ladies and gentlemen, it was never what's his name. It was always Joe M, and Joe M was a hero. Let me tell you. Joe, in that time against all those people that you faced, like we said, numerous of them in the Hall of Fame, who were the most challenging hitters that you faced?
Well, that's interesting because I think every pitcher will tell you someone different, and it's not necessarily always the Hall of Famers that gave guys, a lot of trouble. Drysdale had, as well known, had a lot of trouble with Willie McCovey. For me, the toughest hitter was Roberto Clemente because there really wasn't a weakness because his strength was he hit pitches out of the strike zone. So if you tried to make him chase a pitch, well, that was the pitch he liked. It was, even if it almost bounced, he was just absolutely an incredible athlete.
Yogi Berra reincarnated.
Yeah, a left-handed, a right-handed Yogi Berra. Right. Yeah, definitely.
I would get that if you asked a lot of pitchers who pitched back then, that there would be quite a few that had to say Roberto Clemente.
Yeah, no question about it. Again, he was just such almost a freak of nature. One of the things he could do from the outfield, running the bases, he could beat you in so many ways. And, Willie Mays was like that. I didn't have it, and I don't know what the numbers are against Mays, but when I first joined the club, Drysdale said, let me give you some thoughts on how to pitch to Mays since I was pitching that night. He said, you throw that first pitch at his head, and he doesn't like to be thrown at. And so, he said, but when there's runners on, throw that all out the window. It's not going to, make any sense to do that. And because I was so young, Mays thought I was wild, and he just did not like to be thrown at. So it helped me against him.
Gee, I can't believe that Don Drysdale's giving people advice to throw inside and throw at them. Never.
No, he wouldn't do that kind of thing, but most intimidating pitcher that I ever saw, pitch, no question about it.
He
Tremendous competitor.
He was. He really was. And I can remember, as a kid, just thinking, watching him pitch, and him saying, and I'm sure he referenced the Giants a lot, but when he said, if one of my guys go down, two of your guys go down.
Yeah. And this is a true story too. Where I think we're in Milwaukee, and there was an open base, and I think Joe Torre was hitter, if I'm not mistaken. And Alston went out the mound. He said, "Don, I want you to walk Torre in 4 pitches, set up a double play." Alston didn't even get to the dugout, and he heard a thud noise. He turned around, and Drysdale had drilled Torre. Alston ran back out the mound. He said, "Don," he said, "I thought I told you to walk him." He said, "Skip, why waste 4 pitches?" That's mean.
I love it. I love it. He really was one heck of a competitor.
Yeah, it sure was. He didn't have this, the outright stuff like Gibson as far as, we didn't have radar guns there as far as throwing, 95 plus, but I'm sure he was probably in that category or close to it. But he was just so intimidating, and of course his sidearm delivery didn't make it any easier for right-handed hitters.
Yeah, no, and his height too. He was so big that when he let the ball go, it was pretty close to where they were.
Oh, it looked like it was coming from behind you.
Yeah.
And he had the outstanding control too, so that was, in his favor.
Yeah, it sure was. And I think that's what let the batters know when one accidentally got away that it really didn't.
Well, and also once in a while he'd get some wet substance on his fingers that made the ball just absolutely the bottom come out of it. So I think they called it a spitter.
No, that was his hands just needed to be moist. That was all.
Yeah.
That was all. Oh man, what just a great memory of 19 and like you said, pitching with the fourth guy when the other 3 are all Hall of Famers: Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, and Don Sutton. What a way to learn as a young pitcher.
Absolutely, and there's I think it was 1966 that the 4 Dodger starters, and I was the 5th starter, and before anybody jumps up and down and congratulates me, the 5th starter just meant you pitched the second games of the doubleheader, so I had a lot of time in between starts. But that year, the 4 Dodger starters started every single game except 8 games, which were the 8 games that I pitched. So, and that's just amazing to me when you think about it, especially today. To have just 4 starters to work the whole year.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I know you and I have before. The pitch count. That just what would Drysdale, especially Drysdale. There's no way you're going to take him out because he hit a certain amount of pitches.
Oh boy, that was the last thing you wanted to do with him, is to be walking out, and it was like, what are you doing out here? You're not, he was just such a competitor. All those guys were. Drysdale said that, that I pitched a good game when I was shaking hands with the catcher after the 9th inning.
That's awesome. I think that's the way it should be. How as a former pitcher back in the day when you were really pitchers, what do you feel about the pitch count?
Well, because all my years advancing, and I saw the changes that came about and how they, it's created a couple problems, and that the pitchers start to, they know they've thrown close to 100 pitches, and they start to look to the bullpen for help. Aren't you getting somebody warm up? I must be getting tired of throwing, 80 pitches, 100 pitches, and so I think it's changed the mindset. I've not seen any statistics that show that it's made, helped to extend any players' careers or made them any better, by adding the pitch counts. I'm all for it. There's certain situations that I understand that, that you've got to watch pitch counts, but there's just so many pitchers that I saw that actually got better as they were, they got a little tired because then they focused more on moving the ball around rather than reaching back and getting a little extra.
Right. I think that's true, and I really think that the pitch count has weakened pitching in that their arms aren't as strong. A lot more guys are getting hurt than they used to hurt. Complete games have gone from 22 in 1977 down to 2 last season. That's just ridiculous. They're not as strong. They don't, pitch the way they should be pitching.
Well, and as I'd mentioned to you that in my first year when I was 18 years old in the minor leagues for the Dodgers, I pitched 245 innings and I had almost 295 strikeouts, completed 20-some games, and I just don't feel it. It affected me. In one, I was 20-9 that year as an 18-year-old, and I just didn't. Looking back, I just don't feel it affected my arm at all as far as whether it shortened my career or not. And yeah, I'm not for it. I just don't think unless they can show me medically, with statistics that it's made a difference.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll ever be able to do that. And the quality start because I made it through 6. Wow.
Oh, and under 3 runs. Yeah, that's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. Who in the National League? I know Clemente was the most challenging hitter. Who would you say was the best player that you ever saw in the National League?
He'd be in that category because he was such a great outfielder. And I mean, with Mays, again, to compare Mays or Clemente, I think of Frank Robinson. There's just, there's a lot of guys. Frank Robinson was also another tough hitter, for me, because he crowded the plate and he took away that inside.
Right, he leaned in.
Yeah, and so it was tough to get in there without hitting him, and he didn't care. He wanted to take that part of the plate away from me, the outside corner, because he could reach it. Then I think Rose was just a great ball player for me. That and just the way he played the game right.
Boy, he sure did. Sure did. And and thinking about Clemente, of course, you can't forget that the great Al Campanis had him and signed him, and he was almost a teammate of yours.
Yeah, there's a few guys. Lou Brock, was another player that moved from the Cubs to the Cardinals.
Right.
So there's our young players that even today that you don't quite see it, and then all of a sudden 2 years later, 3 years later, they put it together. So that was just one of those things. I didn't fault Al for letting that happen or whatever. He was responsible for that.
No, Al was probably one of the greatest baseball men that I ever met. He could do it all.
Absolutely, boy. He lived and breathed it, and he studied it, and it was probably ahead of his time.
Oh, I think very much. But not only did he do all those things, once he had that all, he shared the information, unlike quite a few people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was a great guy. Let's talk about your most memorable moment. Those are some pretty good teams, some pretty good years. What was your most memorable moment?
Well, for me, every player's dream is to pitch in a World Series. That's the biggest thrill you can have. I think of the guys that like the Billy Williams, the Ernie Banks, that as great of all players. There's so many guys in the Hall of Fame that never were on a team and
right.
had the opportunity to play in a World Series. So for me, pitching against the Orioles, it was not a good series for us, but just and that year because we had one of the best pitching staffs. I think I read somewhere probably in the top 5 to 10 pitching staffs in the history of baseball.
Right.
That year, and so for me, I was the 5th starter, and so I didn't pitch that much, and came out of the bullpen a few times, and so I just didn't think that there's any chance, especially with Drysdale starting that first game, and so I'm glad I brought my spikes down to the bullpen that night, and so Drysdale got in trouble in it was the first innings, and when the phone rang down, our bullpen coach Carol Behringer said, Joe, get up, and I thought, you sure you get that right? You want me to get up? And I almost threw the first pitch out of the bullpen. I mean, there's just so much a difference between just a regular season game and the World Series. The importance of it. The millions and millions of people that are watching. So, and then when I finally did get loose, I was walking out of the bullpen, and I looked up, and there were the first 3 hitters were going to be, I think it was Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, and Duke Powell. And I they'd lock the gate. And
Gee, I don't know why none of those three guys were talented or anything.
That's the biggest thrill any player can have, without a question.
Oh, I think so too, and especially like you said, those three guys. Wow, that's something. That'll mess with your psyche for a while. But you're right. Like in a World Series, the electricity, the fans feel it, the players feel it. It really is a big difference.
Yeah, well, you work so hard all year long to be one of those final two teams, and and that year we won the pennant the last day of the season, and Koufax pitched a super game in Philadelphia, and so we were just so mentally exhausted from back and forth, one game up, one game down, and with the Giants and the Pirates, I think it was that year. So it was it was definitely a big thrill.
I bet. During your time with the Dodgers, you were teammates at one time or another with quite a few people who are friends of Inside Pitch. Some of them were my best friends. Guys like Al Downing, Jim Lefebvre, Al the Bull Ferrara, Maury Wills. Who are some of your favorite teammates?
Jeff Torborg was my roommate, and back then we had roommates. Don Sutton was my roommate. Those two guys, just Torborg, he was the most class guy, had the most character of any person. Loved pitching to him. With Torborg, if you had struggled or whatever, he always took it on himself like it was his fault. He was calling the wrong pitches or whatever. But just absolutely an unbelievable person. Sutton, again, another guy with a lot of character, and probably one of the best competitors I've ever known, because he didn't have the blazing stuff, but boy, there was just no one that I saw that competed as well as he did. And I remember talking to writers, and I was saying, how could he not be in the Hall of Fame? Because it took him quite a while to get in the Hall of Fame.
It did.
He said, well, but it took him, I think, 20 years to win 316 games. I thought, you don't have a clue what it takes to pitch then. If you think that pitching for 20 years, that alone should get him into the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
Your arm goes through, so Al Downing, without a question, probably, as we call him, Gentleman Al, is one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
He really is.
A class gentleman, too. So had a lot of players. Boy, Maury Wills, he was so good to me, especially in my younger years. Tommy Davis, because I had signed for a large bonus, and back then, my first year with the Dodgers as a fourth starter, I made $6,500 for the year. So
big money, and it was back then.
It was fun. It was, and so the bonus that I got, was $90,000. Well, some of those players hadn't made that in 3 years, so they resented that fact that and I understood that. There's, totally understood it, just because it was the early years of the bonus, money.
Right.
And so they, kind of, I won't say ostracized me, but kept me away. And Tommy Davis, stood up for me a few times when players were, kind of not liking the fact that I was there. So Maury Wills was also too. So it was a really a neat person for me when I was just 19, and I'd say not quite accepted on the ball club at that time.
Some great guys, great teammates. What about people from other teams? Did you have any favorite players to be with off the field from opposing teams?
No, not really. Again, being the youngest player in the league, and just a year out of high school, I didn't have a lot of anything in common with many players. In fact, the closest friend of mine was our bat boy Rene Latchman. Rene
wow.
was a year younger than me, or 2 years younger than me, and he was our bat boy. So, hung around with him.
There you go. He ended up having a pretty good career in the big leagues.
Oh yeah, he sure has, boy.
And Torborg too. You hung out with the managers. There you go.
Well, and Jeff Torborg, when he was with Montreal, actually just more of as an advisor in, I think it was 2000, and he, Philippe Alou and Jim Beattie were talking about that they needed an advanced scout, and then Jeff just happened to hear the conversation, and he said, hey, I've got somebody that would love to do that. started advancing, and that was my dream job in baseball.
Wow. Why don't you tell us a little about that? What all, as the advanced scout, all the details. I don't think most people know how important that job is.
Yeah, it really is kind of a, people say, and I tell them I'm an advanced scout, and they went, what is that? What's that? And the first thing they asked me, said, well, do you look at high school players, college players? And an advanced scout, what you're really doing is chasing the next team that your team's going to play. So I would be, if the Marlins were going to play the Braves next, I would be wherever the Braves are, whether it's New York or LA or wherever. I'd be watching them and trying to figure out, how to pitch them, how to play them, who's hurt, who goes to their left better than their right. Just anything possible that I could find out. As an advanced scout, I would stay at the Marriott 200 days a year.
Wow.
Just chasing that next team. Well, once I finished with that one team, I'd be off to watch the next team. But I've always been fascinated by that. In the 80s, when computers weren't fashionable, I developed a computer program that would track those kind of things. And but baseball wasn't quite ready for it then. And boy, now they've gone all the other direction with it.
Boy, they sure have. Let's talk about that a little bit, because when people ask me for now, I tell them that you are the original founder of analytics.
Well, not to the extent that they have now. That's like the Don Sutton used to always say. He said, you were so far ahead of your time. Baseball wasn't ready for it then. As far as tracking where guys hit the ball, what pitches they hit, just all kinds of things. I was just so fascinated by it. And but now, for me, I feel like they've just gone so overboard with it, whether it's the shifts, and they've taken to such an extreme where I think there's a balance. I think there's some things that you can use, but and it happens with a lot of things, that the pendulum swings so far over, and then maybe they settle back down to something in between.
And I hope so, because we already talked about the pitch counts nowadays and those kind of things, and I'm with you. Analytics has got way out of hand, and you don't hear baseball anymore. You don't hear swing level. It's what's your arc. You don't. They do the infield. Everybody shifts and nobody knows how to punch it to the opposite field. They've really, in my opinion, the game's just getting ruined with analytics.
Well, it's just not going to change back the other way. I don't see it. It's like we wish it would, but I just don't see that happening, especially because there's so many people now in baseball that aren't baseball people. They're MIT graduates. And
right.
I was at Dodger Stadium 2-3 weeks ago, and they were saying that next to the visiting clubhouse there's a room that, and I think they said 10, 15 people that sit there in front of computers and chart things and keep track of things and that are going on. So it's a different game.
It is. The last I heard, the Dodgers had 40 people on their payroll for analytics.
Wow, that is just...
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and see, the interesting thing is, like, even when I was advancing, there's so many things that I would look for as far as, even whether it's personalities and injuries to players, are they not getting around the inside pitch because they just got hit by a pitch and they've got a bad hand, or,
right.
Just the little things like that just, for me, don't show up in analytics, from that standpoint.
Well, I think it's really true. If it's not a scout, the human being, the scout who either knows baseball really well and preferably played it, you miss all that. I mean, because a lot of it is personality and how fast does this guy recover from an injury, or how fast does this guy want to recover from an injury. All those things. Yeah, it is a new game.
Well, it's the difference too, because I got to be on the road sometimes maybe 6 weeks before I get home, and because I just seen a team I'd watched on TV, do it by satellite, and I would say watching it by satellite for me was about maybe 70% as efficient as for me being there, because the camera's not always on. What I'm looking for,
right.
As far as watching a player, how does an outfielder break to the left, right? Does he throw? Which side does he throw from? better than another, and just a lot of little things that they don't show on TV, which is what all those guys in those rooms are watching.
Right.
So.
Right. And it's those little things that makes it, to me at least, being at the game a lot more interesting than watching it on TV, because you do look, when this guy comes up, look at this guy go back 2 steps into the left, and this guy comes up into the right. And I mean, baseball is just fascinating.
Yeah. That's, again, the kind of the in-depth things that baseball people are going to pick up a lot, more often, I think.
Right. I agree. In your career with the Dodgers, what is, if either one or one of, the funniest thing that you ever saw happen on the field or in the clubhouse?
Oh boy, good question. I don't know that I was ever laughing that much at what. The one thing that comes to mind, I guess, I'm just thinking now, is that I was pitching a game in Philadelphia, had a good ball game going, and there was a runner on second base. Dick Groat, in fact, was on second base, and it was a close play at first. I was covering first, and I caught the ball, and I don't remember if it was Cookie Rojas. He stepped on my foot, so I caught the ball, and then he stepped on my foot, and the umpire, I think it was Mel Steiner, he called him safe, and so I knew that I had him out because we didn't have the replay then, obviously.
Right.
And so I knew I had him out, and then when I saw him give a safe sign, I was just livid. And so, and it wasn't like me. That wasn't my personality. But I went after him. I said, he was out. He was out. And here I'm yelling and screaming at him. In fact, our first baseman was Dick Stewart, Dr. Strangeglove.
There you go.
And he grabbed me, and he's trying to wrestle the ball from me, and I couldn't, I wasn't even paying attention to him. Well, and the reason being is that Dick Groat had walked from second to third to home while I was arguing with Mel.
Oh, no.
And that run, I think I lost 2-1. And Alonzo called me in afterwards, and he said, "You know what? I should fine you." He said, it's just, and he said, "But I think you're embarrassed enough for what you did." And so, he didn't fine me or anything, but talk about embarrassing. And they showed, I still have pictures of it, but me just, screaming at Steiner, and there was Groat walking from second to third to home.
Oh, wow. How frustrating.
Yeah, well, I let things get out of hand with myself.
Well, and all you had to do was tell him, "Let me untie my shoe. He stepped on my foot."
Yeah, right.
And meanwhile, he's sneaking around. What a sneaky guy to keep going around the bases like that.
Yeah, he had just no consideration for me that I was already with the umpire and didn't call timeout.
Oh, man. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. When it is Hall of Fame time and voting for Hall of Fame and those kind of things, inside pitch, we have a feeling that in today's game, the designated hitters, the one-inning pitchers, that it's fine that they are classified as Hall of Fame, but we think they should be in a special wing, not in the wing with the actual players that play offense and defense.
That's a good thought. I hadn't thought about that. Because the game has changed, and they are important, parts of the game, or make a difference for the clubs winning and losing. Well, I like that idea. That's a because the classic starting pitchers, players that play every day and whatever on the field and play both sides of the ball and everything. Because there's definitely some guys that make such a difference on a team too. So, well, I like that idea as far as having a separate category, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, they could be in the wing where where Vinny is, and Tom, a manager's wing, announcer's wing, just a specialist wing, and then have one-inning pitchers and designated hitters in as those specialists. They're still honored, but they're not players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that idea. In fact, that's the next thing. Because I think at one time I would think that even like relief pitchers for them to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how far back it was the first, relief pitcher, put elected to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think Raleigh Fingers was, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well that's still not that far back.
No.
Even then.
No.
So I and there's definitely guys that are deserving of it because of what they have done for the game. Yeah. Wow.
And I look at guys like Jim Cott, who, almost won 300 games, had 912 Gold Glove awards, and he's not in. And, guys who pitched came in and closed the game, and that was it. They don't even have 1,500 innings pitched are in the Hall of Fame, and people like Jim Cott aren't. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, well, no, but boy, you look at a guy like Koufax. How many innings how many wins did he have to be? Because it used to be the 300 wins.
Right. That was the magic number.
Yeah, it was a magic number that you could walk right in with that. And so for Koufax to show how, because basically what was about 6 years.
Yeah.
So dominant.
Yeah.
Normally that would not be it. How many wins he had? I'm going to say 250 at the. Not even that, maybe 200.
I think it's right in there. I think it's in the low twos, and you're right. I can remember when he did make it, there was a lot of argument about people saying he didn't have enough wins, he didn't pitch enough innings. I mean, I remember that being talked about, and I thought, so what? There is nobody in those 6 years that is more dominant ever. And I'll put him up against Gibson with that. I mean, he was just dominant.
I never saw anybody that made even the best hitters look so, so average.
Yeah.
He did. And the most dominant pitcher ever. And for me, Gibson would be for me my number two choice. Boy, he was as nasty a competitor, as outstanding an athlete as any pitcher I ever saw.
Yeah, I think so too. And I can remember thinking that Sandy was just as dominant as him. And like you said, Sandy could make a superstar hitter look average. And it wasn't that he was fooling them. It was just that he was so good they couldn't do it.
Well, a lot of hitters I heard said it was the most comfortable over 3 or over 4 you could ever have. It was just like bam, bam, bam. Okay, I'll sit down. Because he threw so effortlessly. He didn't work at it as you look at some pitchers. Boy, they come at you and just, they look like they're going to just run up to the plate with the ball. Sandy was just so smooth and so just easy, and then all of a sudden that ball just came out at, I'm sure close to 100 miles an hour. And hitters would miss pitches by not just a couple inches, but by feet.
Oh, absolutely. I can still see some of those swings, and it's like, wow, you're not even in the zip code with your bat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was fun to watch. And then when you would see, like you in the clubhouse, and so you'd see his arm afterwards, how bruised and swollen, and that was awful.
Yeah. He kind of right, with the feeling that he lost in his fingers, and then didn't have the all the technology and the conditioning and the training and the medical fixes for things like that went on with him. So it was just a different era then. It's interesting because back in I'd say 60s, maybe even in the 70s before that, I would sneak off to a doctor I knew and get a cortisone shot, and then just pray that I wouldn't pitch for 2 days because you had to wait that long before you could pitch, and but you couldn't tell anybody. You just kind of worked through it,
right?
Because you didn't have the protection of the contracts, and if you got hurt, they just say, okay, send them to the minor leagues, bring up somebody else. It was just you didn't have that kind of protection.
Right, and that's true. But here's one of my things with Koufax. We're talking about pitchers that there's no longer quality starts and all the things we've talked about so far. Sandy Koufax in 1962 on April 24th, he struck out 18 Cubs in his second complete game of the season in April. And last year, 2 was the most complete games in the league. That's amazing.
And you look at, well, we didn't keep innings pitched. How many pitches that you threw? It just would, you'd be stunned by the numbers of how many pitches some of these, those guys did. Whether trying to still go extended, that pitched 9 innings.
Yeah.
It was definitely going to be, I would think, in the 150 range, or if not a lot more than that even.
Yeah, that's, like you were saying, if you're, in the minor leagues, but you did that then, you do that today, and that's not happening. You cannot throw that much.
Yeah, and something else, Joe, that I understand is because of the amount of money clubs have invested in some of these players, that it's huge. Where if something happens to them, the contracts are so outrageous,
right,
that they just can't afford to have something happen to them.
Right, and that's very true, and I know that's some of it, but in April to have your second complete game, and in 2018 8 people got 2. That was it. That's pathetic.
Yeah.
But that's analytics.
Yeah. Well, and that's and it's driven now too that the bullpen. Other than the closer, the other guys now play an important role. You have a guy that he specializes from the 5th inning on for 2 or 3 innings, or in that we're back. The guys in the bullpen, they were extra guys that there was no place for them, and so they just we need to have an 11-man staff, so you fill the role down there. I tell you one story. In '66 I pitched so little that I actually went to El Camino Junior College and took 2 classes, and I would go to class in the morning and go to the bullpen and study at night, and go back to school the next day. So I got to work on my degree.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, the times have changed just a little bit.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much for giving up your time, and a lot more of it than it seems for those of you watching. We really appreciate that. We appreciate you. And I tell people the Dodgers had 4 starters in the Hall of Fame. Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, and Don Sutton in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and Joe Moller in the Human Being Hall of Fame. You are a special person, and I want to thank you for being who you are, and thank you for giving up your time today to be with us.
Well, you're very kind, and I appreciate talking to you, Joe. Thank you very much.
All right, Joe, you take care and have a great evening.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Joe Moller, what a great, great guy. That was just fun. Can you imagine being 19 years old and you come up and you're pitching with Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, later Don Sutton? Talk about intimidating, and just how good Joe Moller had to be at that age to be on a staff with those kind of guys.
No kidding. And that had, no matter what era you're talking about, that has to be your dream staff.
Oh my gosh. I can't, and it was. The 60s watching the Dodgers, there was nothing like it. It was lights out for almost everybody. They were winning the divisions a lot, playing in the World Series, not winning them all, but playing in the World Series a lot in the 60s and 70s. Just great. And it was all pitching staff and fundamental baseball that you don't see anymore.
Who was the manager back then?
Walter Alston.
No kidding.
Yeah, great guy. Managed a long time, and then right behind him was Lasorda for another long time, each one over 20 years.
Yeah, I know you had a great relationship with Lasorda, and he had a great relationship with your daughters.
Yes, he did. Just a great guy, and a great ambassador for the game. Yeah, he's something.
I understand.
But yeah, Joe Moller, and he really is just a Hall of Fame person. Just a great guy. Does a lot of stuff, community wise. We're helping, with scouting when he was with the Marlins. He didn't really get into as much work as he was. He's very humble. That's a lot of work to be a scout, to keep track of, the things he's talking about. He just lackadaisically said, does this guy throw better from the left or from the right in this situation? And it's not as easy as what he's saying. I mean, that's a very talented person to be able to do that. And he was great at it. That's why he did it for so long.
Plus, he's dedicated, because anybody can stay away from home that much. After a while, you go back to your house, you're like, oh, hey, that's what the bricks look like.
Yeah. And, literally, the saying living out of a suitcase, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But all for the love of the game. And, 2003, the Marlins won the World Series. And again, he was humble. With a lot of that was because of the advanced scouting that he gave them. I mean, really just an incredible guy.
Yep. He was a trendsetter.
Very much so. Very much so. So anyway, Joe, thank you for being on. We really, really appreciated it. We had no emails in myinsidepitch@gmail.com. You guys are letting us down.
No kidding. We're counting on big things from you folks at home.
We actually, there was one. Again, Mr. Yankee, and again, he got the answer right. With what player holds the record for most hits in a season? Our trivia question last week. And Mr. Yankee got it right. It was Ichiro Suzuki. In 2004, he had 262 hits.
Wow.
Not a bad year. Not a bad year.
Brings back my career.
Yeah, you did something 262 times.
Yeah, I think it was strikeouts, though.
Oh, yeah, but you weren't a pitcher.
Exactly.
Oh,
I still hold a county record.
There you go. There you go. And, in this, we saw, this week that Pete Alonzo of the New York Mets broke the record for home runs as a rookie, and he actually led all of Major League Baseball this year with 53 home runs.
Wow.
So the trivia question for this week is, what player holds the records for the most RBIs in his rookie season? What player holds the record for the most RBIs in his rookie season? Without cheating, but with writing to myinsidepitch@gmail.com, please give us your answer, and we will read it and your name next week. Again, what player holds the record for most RBIs in his rookie season?
I guess I'll have to wait till next week to find out, because I have no clue.
You sure it wasn't you?
Well, it wouldn't be RBIs unless it's rats brought in.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening tonight. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you to the great Joe Moller for just being a good guy, a fun guy, and sharing his time with us this evening. We really appreciated it. And those of you in the South Baldwin County area looking for a home, needing a loan, please call my co-host / producer, Mr. Brian Lehman, at 251-616-0005. And on that note, we want to thank you all very much and have a great evening.
Thanks, folks. See you next time.